The speech that closed the auditorium was full teachers, students, alumni, and a few reporters who had caught wind of a powerful story unfolding in a small town high school. The air buzzed with anticipation as principal doctor. Jade Walker took the stage, not just as an educator, but as living proof that justice can come full circle. This wasn't just a speech, it was a reckoning wrapped in grace. It was the final piece of a story that had started in this very building, on the same cracked linoleum tiles, under the same ceiling where she'd once been told, "You don't belong here." Now she stood in that same spot, older, wiser, and holding the entire room in silence. Her story was one of injustice, perseverance, and transformation, and by the time she finished speaking, the audience didn't just understand her past, they saw their school's future. And in that final line, as she paused and looked out over a new generation of students, she said, "Crestwood once tried to write me out of its story, but here I am, not as a footnote, but as the author of its next chapter." And just like that, the speech ended where the story began, with the truth that launched it all. The school that once tried to silence her had made her the principal, a rising star in a rigged system. Jade Walker was Crestwood High's pride, at least on paper. Straight A's since freshman year, captain of the debate team, and the first black student body president in the school's century-old history. Teachers praised her in morning meetings, counselors used her as the model student in presentations. But behind the scenes, Jade was navigating a different set of rules, ones written in silence and enforced in whispers. It started subtly, eye rolls when she spoke too confidently, passive-aggressive notes on essays that lacked humility, and murmurs from students that she was too full of herself. The real tension arrived with Marcus, new to the school but quick to target her with comments that stung like acid. "You talk like you're white. Calm down, Queen." She reported it again and again, but the administration brushed it off. Boys will be boys, they shrugged. To them, her voice was just noise, but Jade wasn't just making noise. She was building pressure, and it was about to blow. The incident that shattered everything it was, a fried, a lunchtime, crowded, loud. Jade was walking her tray to an empty table when Marcus stepped into her path. Smirking, he knocked her food to the floor, leaned in, and whispered a slur that sent ice through her spine. This time, Jade didn't hold back. She shoved him instinct, not rage, and Marcus stumbled into a chair, his head hitting the edge. Phones were already out, but the videos, they only captured her push. The silence afterward was deafening. No questions, no investigation, just a summons to the principal's office. Her parents were called. Jade sat in that stiff leather chair, watching the dean avoid her gaze as he slid an expulsion form across the desk. "Zero tolerance policy," he muttered, the same policy that had tolerated Marcus for weeks. No hearing, no second chances, just an ending, sudden, brutal, and cold. Jade walked out not just expelled, but erased. The school's golden girl cast out like a threat, the vanishing in the spark after that expulsion. Jade vanished from Crestwood like a ghost. Her name was scrubbed from the honor board, her locker reassigned within a week. She didn't even get to say goodbye to her favorite teachers, most of whom had gone silent anyway. Some classmates texted her at first, awkward apologies, and "I wish I could have said something." But those messages stopped too. Silence replaced the applause. She transferred to a gritty inner city school where no one knew her name or her fall from grace. There, a weary guidance counselor with a soft voice and weathered hands took one look at Jade's transcript, and then into her eyes, and knew she wasn't just another broken kid. "Tell me your story," the woman said. So Jade did, every word, and when she was done, the counselor didn't pity her. She leaned in and said, "Let's make them regret ever letting you go." That sentence was oxygen, and for the first time in weeks, Jade breathed again. The rise begins with quiet fire. Jade got to work. She didn't just survive, she soared. Nights were spent at the kitchen table, rewriting essays, studying for scholarship tests, devouring books on justice, race, and reform. Her pain became purpose, her fury a forge. The counselor helped her apply to colleges, and when decisions came in, it wasn't one. It was 10, full rides, prestigious programs, Ivy names, but Jade chose Howard University. She wanted to learn in a place that saw her not as a problem but as potential. There, she majored in education and psychology. She studied systems, how they fail students, how they protect the wrong people. She joined advocacy groups, led marches, and spoke at panels where her voice finally echoed with power. By the time she graduated magna cum laude, she wasn't just a student anymore, she was a force. And deep inside, one memory never left her, the look on the principal's face when she was told to leave. That face would fuel her next move, because Jade wasn't done yet. The voice that couldn't be silenced, Jade didn't just climb, she rose with purpose. By 26, she was already a national name in education reform circles. Her story, once buried in the shadows of shame, had become a lighthouse for others. She gave TEDx talks that left audiences breathless, stood on national panels about school equity, and mentored young black girls who saw themselves in her strength. Her most famous talk, Expelled but Not Broken, racked up millions of views. She didn't name Crestwood High, but the story was unmistakable. A brilliant student punished not for breaking rules, but for breaking silence. That talk shifted something in the nation's conscience. People began questioning who schools truly serve and who they choose to sacrifice for the illusion of order. But for Jade, the accolades weren't the finish line. She still saw that cafeteria in her dreams. Still heard the slam of the principal's door. She wasn't looking for revenge, she was looking for a reckoning. The interview that changed everything when the principal position at Crestwood High opened a decade later, Jade didn't hesitate. She updated her resume, attached her portfolio, and added a cover letter that dripped with quiet thunder. She didn't mention her past, not directly, but her credentials spoke loudly: doctorate in educational leadership. Award-winning equity consultant, national speaker, proven reformer. The board scanned her name, Dr. J. Walker. A few recognized it, most didn't. They invited her in for an interview. When Jade walked through those familiar doors, something in the air shifted. The same boardroom that once voted her out now held its breath in her presence. One aging board member looked up, his eyes widening with recognition. She didn't flinch. She wore her old scars like armor now. The interview was clinical on their part, but magnetic on hers. She spoke of rebuilding trust, of policy that protected, not punished. She laid out a vision they couldn't deny, and when she left, they didn't just see a candidate. They saw a storm coming, and they hired her anyway. Whispers, stares, and shaking foundations. When Jade returned to Crestwood High as its new principal, the atmosphere trembled. Her name on the welcome banner hit like thunder. Some teachers smiled nervously, pretending not to recognize her. Others whispered in tight clusters, wondering if she remembered. She did. Every face, every silence, every fake smile. The first day back, she walked the halls with heels that echoed louder than any voice. The lockers, the staircase, the principal's office door, it was all still there, frozen in time, but now she had the key. Students were curious. She looks young. Was she famous or something? But it wasn't the students who were nervous. It was the adults. One teacher, the same one who once told her to stop acting like a victim, requested early retirement. Another left without warning, but Jade didn't gloat. She wasn't there for vengeance. She was there for justice with structure, to rebuild what was broken, but the past hadn't fully left the building, not yet. The man who came back empty, it was a gray Thursday when Marcus appeared. Older, heavier, a shadow of the boy who once mocked her in hallways. He walked into the front office with a phony smile and a donation check in hand, claiming he wanted to support the new leadership. But Jade already knew he was there for something else: curiosity, control, or maybe to see if she was still that girl he thought he broke. The secretary buzzed her. "A Mr. Marcus Dean is here to see you." She paused only a second. "Send him in." He walked into her office like a man trying to act casual but feeling the heat. Well, he said, eyes darting around her clean, commanding space. "Didn't expect you here." She stood slowly, calm, collected. "Powerful, I did." She said, "I've been planning this for years." He chuckled, tried to play it off. "No hard feelings, right? Kids do dumb things." She stepped closer. "You tried to destroy me, but here's the part you never expected. I used the bricks you threw to build this office." He left minutes later, check forgotten on the desk, pride shredded on the floor. Rewriting the rules, one policy at a time, Principal Jade Walker didn't waste time. Her first act wasn't symbolic, it was systemic. She tore through the outdated handbook that once allowed her expulsion without a voice. In its place, she introduced reforms rooted in fairness, empathy, and real accountability. She created anonymous reporting systems for bullying and harassment, formed student panels to voice campus issues, hired trauma, and formed counselors who didn't dismiss pain as overreaction. Her school didn't just discipline anymore, it listened, healed, and rebuilt. And she didn't stop at rules. She reshaped the culture. Teachers received bias training. The curriculum expanded to include voices that had been silenced. For the first time, students saw themselves reflected on classroom walls and in leadership. Jade walked the halls daily, checking in, nodding to kids who walked alone, stopping for the ones who couldn't speak up yet, because she knew what it was to be invisible. Now, she was the reason they were seen. Legacy born from the ashes. By the end of her first year, Crestwood High was unrecognizable. Graduation rates soared. Student mental health services doubled, and the school that once expelled its brightest now championed every voice. On graduation day, Jade sat in the front row as a student. An Afro-Latina valedictorian stepped up to the podium. Her speech was powerful, emotional, and honest. But one sentence silenced the crowd. "I stand here today because a woman who was once thrown out of this school came back and built a door where they once put up walls." Jade's eyes welled up, but no tears fell. Not because she wasn't moved, but because she had cried all her tears long ago. She rose to thunderous applause and took the stage, not to speak of the past, but to hand out diplomas for the future. Her story had started with an expulsion. Now she handed out second chances for a living. She wasn't just a principal. She was the proof that rising again is not just possible, it's powerful. Full circle, fully changed Jade didn't return to Crestwood for revenge. She returned for something far greater: restoration. She came not to reopen old wounds, but to make sure no student would ever be wounded the way she had been. Under her leadership, the school transformed from a monument of silence to a beacon of empowerment. The same walls that once boxed her in now echoed with possibility. But perhaps her greatest legacy wasn't the programs she implemented or the policies she rewrote. It was the belief she restored in every student who had ever been told they were too loud, too proud, too different to belong. Years ago, Jade had left this school broken and discarded. Now she stood as its strongest pillar, not in defiance, in victory. She wasn't the exception to the system, she rewrote the system so no one else had to be. And that was the story of how the expelled girl became the principal, not just of the school but of her own power.